Well, I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, or a good Thanksgiving if you're going to celebrate it with your family today. If you didn't get enough to eat, there's plenty in my refrigerator. You can come over. There's so much in there that when you open up the door and that light's supposed to shine, and you can't see any light in there. It's so stuffed. So, happy Thanksgiving. God bless you. If you're a visitor to Transfiguration today, perhaps visiting family, we have a drill here, and here we go again. It's the Advent Christmas drill, right? It begins today. We have a candle. The first candle was lit. We'll have a candle each of the succeeding weeks lit. Pretty soon we'll have 4, and then we'll celebrate Christmas shortly after that. We'll be wearing violet. There'll be a crib with the baby Jesus who arrives. There'll be shepherds that make their way towards Jesus. Beautiful. It'll be decorated just gorgeous for Christmas. And then everyone in the parish will be rushing around, busy trying to get presents for everyone. That's kind of our drill, right? It's the Advent Christmas drill. But behind all that is the church trying to get us into a basic posture, especially during Advent here, a basic posture that should characterize us as Christians. And the basic posture is kind of watching and waiting, our eyes kind of wide open, waiting, watching for someone, on the lookout. And we hear echoes of this in our gospel today. Jesus says, "Beware that your hearts do not become drowsy from sin and the anxieties of life." He says, "Be vigilant at all times." Well, as we prepare to do the drill, I'd like to offer 3 things that I think we should be on the lookout for this Advent. Number 1, fire. Number 2, snow. And number 3, babies. Babies. We should be on the lookout for opportunities to huddle around the fire, because a fire brings warmth, it brings heat, and it brings light to darkness. Today I stand before you. I love fire. I'm a pyro in the family. I don't know who's a pyro of the Stella family, but I'm sure there's 1 or 2 dozen. They're pointing to each other. But it wasn't always that way. I had an experience of fire when I was young. I watched our garage burn down. My brother was, back in those days, you're supposed to burn your own trash, right? You're supposed to bring the trash barrel outside. He left it inside the garage, and he started burning the trash in there, and things got out of control. My dad was out of town. My mom feverishly tried to fill up water and spill it all over the place. We called the fire department, and I remember part of our garage burning down and standing at that back screen door watching it burn. And then I became an altar boy, and I could not for the life of me light that match for the candles. That's one of the things the altar servers have to do. And I couldn't do that until one day I finally got the strength to do it. I remember in the sacristy with my shaking hand trying to light that candle, and I finally did, and it was all fine after that. And fire, it's a powerful thing, and now I love fire. Fire is my favorite color, especially as it as you have coals, kind of that orangish, deep yellow color. It's my favorite color. I love campfires. I love kind of just looking at a flame, mystical, kind of mesmerizing look. And the church uses a flame as well in her baptismal liturgy. And I just baptized some children not too long ago. And we usually do it here in the parish these days. And the Easter candle is there. And at a certain point during this ceremony, we have the godparents, sometimes the godfathers, will take a small candle, we'll have them light it from the Easter candle. They'll come down, they'll stand in front of the child and their parents, and the church will look them in the eye and they'll say these words, "Parents and godparents, this light has been entrusted to you to be kept burning brightly. These children of yours have been enlightened by Christ. May they keep the flame of faith alive in their hearts, and when the Lord comes, may they go out to meet him." And the point of that whole symbol in the liturgy is if we don't have a flame, we can't see. And the church reminds everyone, hey, it's still dark out there. The world that this child will enter has darkness. It's dangerous. The sun hasn't finally arrived yet. Yes, Jesus came, and he was a light in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome him. But look to the east. The full light will arise when Christ comes again. And with this light will come full restoration. Injustice, all of it, will be finally gone. And all of our hopes and everything that we yearn for will be realized. And this is the big theme of Advent that we need to keep our eyes open for. So Jesus says, be vigilant for this coming of his. And if we aren't, and if we don't have a candle, if we don't have faith, and we are not looking for anything, the darkness will cause us to go to sleep, and we won't be ready. So this Advent, I urge you to let the pyro within come out. And very practically, I urge you to take an opportunity to perhaps get a candle, go around a fire, turn the lights down, and stare at it, and consider your baptismal calling. Consider the darkness in your life and how Jesus is the light. And let him speak to you through that flame. The second thing is snow. Be on the lookout for snow, especially the fluffy stuff. Why? Because snow falls silently. And I'd like to share a poem with you about this. I think it's a common American experience in grade school and high school to read poetry, right? Some of us just hated that part of the class, but there's some great poems that we were exposed to when we were younger. Some of them you might recognize, some authors like, you remember Edgar Allan Poe? Remember him? Kind of creepy. You remember E.E. Cummings? Tough to understand. How many remember Robert Frost? Robert Frost, great American poet. Wrote a couple favorites of mine. Two roads diverged in the yellow wood. Which one should I take? The busy one, the well-traveled one, or should I take the one that not many people take? Just a classic American, I think, Christian-themed poem. But the one that I would like to share with you that has snow in it and is Adventy, it's my Advent poem. Whenever Advent comes around, I think of this poem. It's called Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. It's a story of a person on a horse in evening, twilight, busy person, needs to get to a certain place, but is overcome by the beauty of a scene with snow in it. And it goes like this. Whose woods these are, I think I know. His house, it's in the village though. He would not mind me stopping here to watch his woods fill up with snow. My little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near. Between the wood and frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. He gives his harness bells a shake to ask, has there been some mistake? The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. These woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. What's the point? point is we're all busy. We're all busy with all sorts of things. We have all miles to go before we sleep. This Advent, make a point of stopping. The beautiful snow falls quietly all around us. Sometimes we are unaware of it. Sometimes we busily pass it by, too busy for it. Our relationships, the natural world, all the beauties around us. Life is really beautiful despite all the crap in it. It's beautiful. But also and primarily make a point to stop and take in the beauty of the season, of this season. Perhaps come to a quiet church, go to adoration. Consider how quietly, even incognito, that God came to this earth, like falling snow. And when you see snow, it's sure going to come this season. Not a lot of it has come this season so far. But when you see snow, think of the quiet arrival of Jesus. And finally, babies. This Advent, be on the lookout for babies. You know, Jesus in the crib, obviously. But primarily, I'm thinking also of infants. When you see an infant, and even like an infant with diapers. It reminds me that I live with a theologian, budding theologian, that we went to Mass one day at a church, and on the cover of their bulletin was a kind of a sappy, saccharine picture of Mary holding Jesus with rosy cheeks and big fat Jesus, and he had a reaction against that choice by the parish to have their bulletin adorned with that. And he said, hello, everyone. That was then, this is now. Jesus is now King of the universe. Yes, he was once a baby in a crib, but that era is over. Let's move on. He's now and he's forever King and ruler. I think he was reacting against people who see our religious leader as a defenseless, saccharine baby. There's a point to his reaction, perhaps, and a point that perhaps a lot of his fellow Christians look at this season in a purely sentimental way, and they don't really get the full reality of who Jesus is. Maybe they'd rather just stick with the Jesus in the crib and not consider the grown-up Jesus who makes demands of us. A Jesus that we hear in the gospel, who comes with power and authority, and when he comes, the earth shakes, and he stills the roaring of the seas, and people die of fright when Christ comes on that day. But, it is right and it is proper to look at the baby Jesus during this magical season. And what do we see when we look at the baby Jesus? We see a lot. But one thing we notice right away is his vulnerability, because babies are dependent and they're vulnerable. Why is our powerful God doing this sort of thing? And someone said that what perhaps is a partial answer to the question, why is God doing this? The quote is, there is no true love without vulnerability. There is no true love without vulnerability. So the next time we see a baby, we can ask ourselves, wow, my Lord came to this world and deliberately made himself vulnerable to show me his love. He wasn't afraid of getting hurt to show me his love. Am I being vulnerable with him? Am I being vulnerable when I love others? Or am I too afraid of getting hurt? Or too afraid of showing weakness? A couple ways that you can become vulnerable is go to confession. How vulnerable is that, going to confession? Or perhaps getting the family together again, inviting. It's a vulnerable thing to invite others to a party, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. Whether they're going to not come, give a COVID excuse, family problems, relationships. You put yourself out there, you invite, and you run the risk of getting hurt. But that's how love is, it's vulnerable. So to sum up this Advent, be on the lookout for fire. Keep the fire of faith burning for you and for yours. Perhaps you were at a baptism and you were the one that lit the candle. And the responsibility we have to keep that flame alive. Recognize the darkness around the candle. Don't fall asleep. Watch and wait for someone who will come to put everything right. And secondly, be on the lookout for snow. Look for the silent beauties of your life. Like the traveler in that poem, make the effort to stop and to contemplate. Don't let the busyness overtake you. Let the beauty of this season overtake you, to stop you right in your tracks and cause you and I to be thankful. And finally, be on the lookout for babies. Babies perhaps that are still wearing diapers. And when you see them, think of your Lord and Savior's vulnerable love. Think of how you might love others in a vulnerable way. This love is super attractive. Just like we are drawn to an infant, it's attractive love. Hope that kind of primes the pump for our Advent season as we journey together during this season.